Go.
Good morning, guys. It's Dr. Jenny over at Fort Plaza Fulshire Veterinary Clinic. And today, Maddie and I are going to be chatting a little bit about dog boarding and some questions that you may have, some concerns that you may have, and some definite questions on things to ask before you take your dog to a boarding facility.
Dr. Denny, what should I consider when boarding my dog?
So, I think, the best thing to consider and my most important thing in my mind is your dog going to be comfortable there? Okay. We want to make sure that this boarding facility is clean, that it's like they have good noise canceling. So, like, all the barking from other dogs isn't echoing throughout the entire facility because that can amp other dogs up. We need to make sure that, like, it doesn't smell like, yes, dogs smell, but if you've been in my practice, my practice doesn't stink. Like, we should have it clean. It should be like in a home environment. It's going to be stressful enough, having your dog away from you in a new environment, but we can do some things to help alleviate that stress. But I think the first thing you've got to do is go tour the facility, make sure it's clean. That would be like step one.
Do we offer boarding options here at Four Paws?
So we don't offer boarding here, but we do have a bunch of boarding facilities that we work directly with. So Wagon Tails is one. Canine Country Club is another. There's, I believe, Rover Oaks is another one. Those are kind of our big three that we work with. And then we actually have some clientele here who do in-home or house pet sitting. So that is also available to you. And I think actually that's my preference. I know for my animals, that's my preference. I don't take my animals to go board just because I don't want them to be stressed. So my preference is always like in-home boarding. But if you're going to have to board, I think Wagon Tails is a really great facility, and I've been there and toured it.
Will my dog get active and social time while boarding?
So it depends on where you board them. And these are really good questions for you to ask that boarding facility. How often are my dogs getting aired out? Like how often are they going out for walkies and potty breaks, etc.? Like at Wagon Tails, they have like extended play times outside. There's pools, there's water, there's fetch, there's all these fun things that they can do. At other practices, like some veterinary hospitals, these dogs are only being walked, 2 or 3 times a day. And while that's not bad at all, that might not be what your goal is.
What do I need to know about boarding at a veterinarian's office?
So I think first and foremost, like, we need to make sure that the people that they have on the weekends are trained to recognize when things aren't going right, and that they have a direct line to the practice manager or the practice owner if one of the pets is getting sick or is maybe not eating, or if something is wrong. Like, I think it's important to make sure that their staff is well trained. We don't do boarding here, but if you're going to go to a veterinary clinic that does boarding, those are questions to ask. Tour the facility. Make sure that these kennel technicians are experienced, that they've been trained to know, what is normal, what is not normal. And that way, if something not normal is happening, we can that veterinary clinic can intervene.
What do I need to know about boarding at a pet hotel or resort?
So I think it's the same things that we've kind of already gone over. I would tour the facility. I would get to know their staff. I would watch them interact with their dogs that they currently have there. I would make sure the facility is nice and clean. I would make sure that they have access, that everyone has access to food and water. And I would make sure that they're prepared if someone isn't feeling well. That there are like actual checks being performed where it's not just, oh, I'm going to look and then move on. I mean, I really do think that boarding facilities should have like check boxes. Is the pet eating and drinking? Are we bright alert responsive? Are we happy? Any vomiting or diarrhea? I believe there should be checklists twice a day, where the person taking care of these animals needs to acknowledge that, hey, yes, I looked at this physical pet and I am signing off that this pet is at this point in time healthy and happy.
What do dog boarding facilities need to know about my dog?
So they're going to need to know their vaccine status. So it is always a good idea, at least a month or two before planning a trip and picking a boarding facility, that vaccines that they require. We've run into that here a couple times where There are so many boarding facilities and grooming facilities, and everybody requires different vaccines. Like your core vaccines, which is your rabies and distemper parvo, that's your core. But then a lot of boarding or grooming facilities require your Bordetella vaccine or your canine influenza vaccine or your Lyme vaccine or your lepto vaccine. And it's really the responsibility of the owner to let us know, like, hey, what is going to be required? Our responsibility is to tell you what is your pet at risk for, which we do. But it's not our job to know what every boarding or grooming facility is required. That is going to be on an owner's responsibility to tell us. Our job is to make sure that you get your core vaccines and recommend what vaccines that the pet is currently at risk for. Boarding and grooming facilities don't always follow that.
What do veterinarians generally recommend for safe dog boarding?
So I think that the dogs need to be let out and checked on, 3 times a day at a minimum, free access to water all the time. I think that there should be health checks, like on every single patient twice a day, like no exceptions. And if anything is off, I think that someone needs to be alerted. So these are questions that you need to be asking. But that's my biggest thing is, are we making sure that these pets are okay? Because when they're not home, these people that are watching them don't know their normals. So we're relying on kind of what is standardized normal.
What should I bring and how should I prepare when boarding my dog?
So make sure you bring their own food. I would ask if it's okay for you to bring their own bedding. Some boarding facilities will allow this, some won't. Instructions on medications with the medications. Let them know what veterinary clinic that your dog usually goes to. So if there is a problem, they can contact your regular veterinarian. Those are going to kind of be your big ones. So I hope this helped, alleviate any fears or concerns or questions you might have about, well, what do I need to look for when I'm going to board my dog? If you do have questions, or if you know that your dog is really anxious, there are always medications and even some holistic things that we can chat about to help make boarding not so stressful, both for your dog and for you. So if you do have any questions, please give us a call and set up an appointment. I'd be happy to sit down and talk to you about these options. Thanks, guys.